it is time that we adjourn this meeting to take up the business of the special town meeting. So if I could have a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting until the special town meeting business is dissolved. If I could have that motion and a second. Okay, second, moved and seconded to adjourn to the special town meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Passes by the necessary majority. And we are now embarking upon the special town meeting. I find that the warrant for the special town meeting was properly executed by the Board of Selectmen and return of service made by Constable Matthew J. King. We are in session. I will turn to Article 1, which is bills of prior years. A 9/10 majority is required to pass this article. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to transfer for undesignated fund balance the sum of $450 to pay an FY 2014 bill owed by the Public Buildings and Facility expense for boiler inspections completed by the Commonwealth of Mass Department of Public Safety. You'll see that the Finance Committee and Selectmen support this article. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak regarding this one prior year bill? If not, we'll proceed to a vote, remembering that it does require a 9/10 majority. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes by a unanimous vote. And I think the clerk is also in communication with the cafeteria, and similar margins were reached there. So we thank you very much. I do declare the vote complete on Article 1. You'll recall from your update sheet that Article 2 has been withdrawn, which brings us to Article 3, the blended Community Preservation Act appropriation, and you have it in your booklet in front of you. And I'll just say moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 3 as printed in the warrant, so as printed in your booklet. And I'll turn to Selectman Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As we've done in the past, we've taken and blended our money that we've received through host community agreements into the CPA so that the CPC fund to be able to get more matching funds. It's worked in the past, and we're asking that you approve these transfers this year. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone who wishes to be heard with respect to Article 3? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. It passes by a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, please so record. And also, the precinct in the cafeteria has reported in, and similar majority was rung up there, which brings us to Article 4, Library Trustees, Library Building Project. The motion is moved and seconded by the Library Trustees that the town vote to approve Article 4 as printed in the warrant. The Library Trustees do have a presentation that they'd ask for your indulgence at this moment. So we'll start with that, and then we'll get into the how we're going to handle this article. Thank you.
If anybody would like to talk once it's going, we'll just come up to this mic, and they'll recognize us from in there and let us speak from here also.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sam Alvarez. I'm the library director. I'm joined here today by Mark Rombacher. He's the chair of the trustees, Jenna Brownson, the vice chair, and Phil O'Brien. He's the architect with Johnson Roberts. So today we're going to talk to you about how we got to this point, very briefly, and the process up to this point, why we feel we need a new library. Then the trustees are going to take over, and then we'll open it up to questions. So, why do we need a new library? So, one of the main issues we have with the library is space. We're constantly adding books to the collection due to state certification requirements, and that means we have to buy new books every year. The amount that we spend on new books increases every year, and in order to keep up, we have to either remove books after a 3-year period, or we have to find new space somewhere. So space is a huge requirement for us. We don't really have any place to expand to, and so we feel a new library would help to take care of that issue. One of our second issues is that we are not American with Disabilities Act compliant or ADA compliant. We had a representative from the Institute for Human-Centered Design come to the library and do a walkthrough with us. She came with me, Jenna, and Pam Campbell, the COA director. And we walked through the library and we took a look at some of the issues. Some things she pointed out were that when you enter the library, there's a set of stairs there that if you have a wheelchair or some other type of disability, that can be a big hindrance for you. So in our new library design, we're looking to basically eliminate those stairs when you enter the library. The new design calls for you just enter the building. We do have a chairlift, but the chairlift breaks down a lot. It's not really big enough if you have a larger wheelchair, so that's another issue that we're concerned about. A lot of the aisles between the bookcases are not large enough for a wheelchair to maneuver through. If you've ever been to our library, you know that the elevator requires a key. So for people with manual dexterity issues, for people with a wheelchair that have to come in through the ground floor and get the key from the second floor, that's an issue. Also, parents with strollers, that's a big issue for them as well. One of the next concerns is that the library was not originally a library, we were a school. So there are issues like floor loads. We had our architect take a look at the floor plans with a structural engineer, and it actually says right there on the floor plans that the library, the school, was built with a 50-pound to about 120-pound per square foot floor load capacity, and libraries, because of all the weight of the books, actually require 150 pounds per square foot weight capacity. So that's a major concern for us that we feel we can really address with a new library. So how did we get to this point then? So back about a decade ago, the library trustees became aware of the construction project process, the construction grant process that's offered by the state through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. They began researching what they could do. They began an annual fund drive to help fund it. Back in May of 2014, they went to town meeting and they asked that the town vote to provide $20,000 towards a planning and design grant. We got a matching grant from the state for $40,000, and all in all, since then, we've spent about $75,000 with architects, surveys, library consultants. Back in 2014 is when I started, and so we hired a library consultant. He gathered information from the community. We held focus groups, held surveys, and we found out what the community needed in a new library, what they felt they needed. They shared that information with us, and we put it all into what's called the building program. The building program basically discusses what we want in a new library. The building program was submitted to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. They said, looks good, good to go. We hired an OPM to help us with the project. They helped us hire Johnson Roberts as our architect. Since then, we've held multiple meetings. open meetings with the public. I've gone personally to other groups in town, like the Rotary and the COA, to talk to them about the project. It's been a long process. It's been about 2.5 years. So now we've gotten to this point where we're asking for what I'm going to tell what the trustees are going to share with you. So thank you.
So again, my name is Mark Rambacher. I'm the chair of the trustees. As Sam said, in 2014, we came to town meeting and asked for funds for the building design plan. At the time, the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee supported the application, and the town did as well. In August, the COA, at one of their meetings, voted to unanimously support the library relocating to a new site as the best way of getting more spaces for the senior center. And at the master plan meetings, the library has been having very unanimous support. In fact, we were second vote getter at one of the charrettes, only to the sidewalk plan and bicycle plans. So what are we voting on today? Well, we're voting to allow the trustees to submit a grant application. The grant application was actually already filed in January, but we need approval of the town for it to be considered by the MBLC. Part of the grant application is approving the schematic design, which is basically the pictures, the rough outline and plan for the building itself. We're also voting on where the library goes if we choose to go forward, which will be on the slope site behind the town hall. In the picture there, you can see the existing town hall. The new library would be located on the slope site there next to the ball fields. It does not disturb the ball fields in any way, and we're within wetlands delineation. The reason we need a 2/3 vote tonight is because of the town bylaws concerning transfer of land, and the 2/3 is to give us the right to build on the new site. So what does a no vote mean? Well, it means that we're rejecting state aid. The project, as it's currently costed out, will be about $13 million. The formula the state gives us said that they would pay roughly $6 million of that. If we vote no, we're not eligible for state aid in this round of grant. There's no way to get back in line. We have all of the issues that Sam mentioned on the existing library that we'd have to figure out which ones we could mitigate and which ones we can't. We'd have to just continue discarding books that aren't very old. And one of the advantages, one of the plans in the new libraries calls for more meeting space. We won't be able to provide that and so forth. Go ahead. So what does a yes vote mean? A yes vote means we're eligible for the $6 million from the state. It's just giving us the right to stand in line for a grant application. We don't know when we would get the grant. The earliest it could possibly be would be July of this year, but it's more likely to be years down the line. We don't know until after July. What does a yes vote cost you? Today it costs you absolutely nothing. All the money that we spent for the library to this state has already been spent. There will be no more funds expended until after we get the grant from the town side. So what does a yes vote commit us to? Absolutely nothing. We're just standing in line for the state grant. If we choose not to take the state grant, the town's back in the same boat they are currently. If we do choose to take the state grant, we will be coming back in front of the town meeting at some future date to figure out how to fund it through whatever means that will be. So that's it. Thank you, and we're here for questions.
Okay, before we open it up to the floor, I'd like to hear from some boards and committees. Does the Board of Selectmen have a statement?
Hello. Hi. Just to clarify the selectmen's position on this, we did support the article coming to town meeting. Again, it's here tonight. We took no formal position on the current plan. We recognize that the library is a great focal point for the town and has outstanding employees, as well as their space problems and accessibility needs, but we're awaiting a review the town department needs at Town Hall, which is underway, which would help us identify the needs of the library, but also other departments. And we also have a desire to work towards a solution that has minimal impacts to the taxpayers.
Okay,
You guys have.
thank you. Finance Committee.
Thank you. My name's Fred Faulkner. I'm this year's chair of the Finance Committee. I just have 2 quick slides for you. The Finance Committee normally does not vote on non-financial articles, and technically this is a non-financial article that's being presented tonight, so we did not take a position on it. However, let's see. Bear with us for a second. Okay, special Article 4. Excuse me. Basically what we're doing tonight is already presented, that we'll be accepting the preliminary design. We're transferring a parcel of land to the library, and we are authorizing the library commissioners to go ask for the grant. That's what your vote is going to mean this evening. If the grant is awarded, then, next slide. Okay. The project cost is estimated to be about $13 million, less non-eligible costs that are in the project will bring it down about $12 million. If we get the 48% grant reimbursement, we'd get about $5.8 million from the state, which says that the Library Commission selectmen would come back to the town for $7.3 million. And if you recall, I stood here in November and gave you the financial ramifications of the police station, the fire station, and also the alumni field, which both passed. And the charts that I showed then showed that we would be basically maxed out on our ability to borrow or fund much of any capital beyond our normal operating capital for the next 8 years or so. So if in fact the grant comes through and the selectmen and library commissioners come back to the town within that next 8-year time frame, we will end up recommending an override. What that override will mean, and we just put different rates up, and Steve Venuti's best guess in the 4 or 5 year range, the rates will probably be in the 5% range that we would be borrowing money for. So the average house, if your tax bill says your house is worth $409,000, it will cost you about $164, $165 a year to support this project. If we vacate the town hall by the library moving and renovate the town hall, for about $2 million, it would be another $40 to $50 on top of that. So thinking in terms of the library plus renovating town hall in the next 7 or 8 years, you could expect about a $200 increase per year. $200 increase per year on a $400,000 house. If your house is an $800,000 house, it's twice that. If it's a $200,000 house, it's half that. So we just wanted to put that out there in front, the same way we did on the other two articles that you voted in November. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before we open the floor, yes, sir.
I'd like, Mark Rambacher, again, Library Trustee. The $13.1 million is the number we submitted to this, to the grant for, that's if we build a library in 2020. That's a 3-year out cost, right? So it's not saying that if we build the number if we built the library tomorrow would be less. Not that we're advocating for one tomorrow, we realize later is better. I would also like to say that the trustees, as Sam mentioned before, each of you in town get an annual mailing from the trustees asking for money. To date, that has raised about $250,000 that will be applied to this project. If this grant, if the article passes today, the trustees are committed to doing more fundraising, and we're expecting to be able to defer between 10 to 20% of the $7 million to the town. So.
Okay, thank you. Is that your presentation? Okay, thank you. All right, before we open up the floor to debate, just a couple of words on how I'm going to handle this article. If you read the text of the article, which is included in the motion, there are 3 distinct conditions that have to be met under this article. There's a section A, B, and the C. And they all have to be met in order for the trustees to move forward. So I'm not going to accept any amendments to this motion at all. We're not going to add to it, subtract from it. We're not going to change a comma, because I think the library trustees deserve to get the vote they need if you choose to pass it, and we don't want to do anything but vote up or down on the motion that is in front of us tonight. So I think we owe them that much to tell them whether to go forward or not. So that's how we'll handle it. If anyone wishes to speak to the article, if you'd move to a microphone, and please do the same in the cafeteria, and we'll get to you as well. And I'll start over here with you, ma'am. You were the first in line, so
Thank you.
you have first crack at it.
Judy Osgood, 3B Pamela Way. Fred, I just have a question. All the numbers that you just put up there for the $7 million in 8 years is only if we vote yes for the library to go for the grant. If for some reason we say no, the library trustees may come back and say, well, we want $13 million. Is that correct? As far as the numbers are concerned, I'm just saying that the numbers that are up there are if we vote yes for the library to go for the grant.
Okay, just a reminder, all questions are through the moderator to
I apologize.
whoever you want to address them to, but recognize Mr. Faulkner, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Yes, that's correct. The numbers I put up assume that we get the 48% that the library commissioners are applying for. In any event, if the town wanted, for whatever reason, to pay $13 million instead of $7, you can figure it's going to be twice that much. But yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll come over to the center microphone, and before you start, Mr. Sanders, I know we had a conversation before the meeting, and you have rather extensive prepared remarks, but I'd be willing to bet you can say in 5 minutes what you were going to say in 15, so please have at it.
Mr. Moderator, my name is George Sanders, 672 Great Road. I spoke to you before this town meeting came up with regards that I wanted to be in opposition and make a statement, and you told me I would have time to do it, and I expect to do it here tonight. First of all, I would like to comment about the approximately $13 million projects that's already in the pipeline and how they made it into the budget without raising our property tax. The fire chief waited until money was inside of the budget levy by paying off the high school and the police department. There's no department that offers a more vital service than the fire department. The fire department saves properties and lives, but yet instead, the fire chief was willing to make do without raising property tax, and the alumni committee just happened to come along at the right time, in my opinion. The fire department chief realized that some of the most vulnerable taxpayers are our seniors. I am not here to play on taxpayers' emotion. I am convinced that the library can wait longer for money to come available within the budget levy to build a new library. Some said that this is a win-win opportunity for the town, and that's true, because there's no loss of money from the state by waiting, but an increase in our taxes for all to build now. For many, today was the due date for the last FY 2017 property tax bill to be paid. I stand in opposition this evening to build a new library now, and I'll tell you why. Our seniors are a group of retired citizens that are now living as pensioners, but are continuing to pay their share of taxes when others want their way and jump in front of the senior center. The pensioners, like our disabled, blind, military retirees, disabled veterans, and Social Security. I am not here asking the voters tonight to feel pity for our pensioners, but hopefully one day all that are here tonight will become a pensioner and will understand it is about not having enough money at certain times. Thanks to this great Commonwealth, the blind veterans are exempt as of last year or this year to paying property tax for life. There's less than 20 veterans in the state that are 100% blind. Now, speaking about the library saying that a yes vote on May the 1st is not asking for money, is playing on words and not being forthright and in the clear with the voters, in my opinion. I understand that we could vote yes this evening and the next time vote no. Unequivocally, I get that. But why put the town budget in a misperception stand and waste the state resources? If the money is not within reasonable reach without a debt exclusion or override, the town has to be ready with the money because the state will not wait one moment past the deadline. A yes vote tonight is telling the state to accept our application in May of 2017. Littleton has the money and is ready to build a new library. And how much money is the state going to award Littleton to build a new library in July of 2017? These are the facts. I'm a realist. No games here. I encourage all town officials to stand back except for the director of budget, the town CPA. The director of budget is the key official that keeps this town money in balance and keep the town out of trouble with balanced budgets that are required by state law. As a result of her direction given to the town administrator, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee, this town holds a AAA rating, which is a great benefit which becomes when it comes to borrowing money. Let the director of budget tell the voters here tonight what the future budget outlook are in terms of paying the bills without a tax increase to build a new library now. Let the voters have their say after an overview on the amount of debt versus income before voting for or against article of this special town meeting. It is my hope that the town of Littleton tax base will swell a little based on the town folks letting more commercial/industrial growth take place in town. Just maybe, we may be able to move in FY 2026 to build a new library instead of FY 2028. Trying to build a new library or renovating the current library is an amount of money that the budget cannot take on without taxpayers reaching into their pocket and adding at least $200 a year to their tax bill when all is said and done. $200 that many do not have to give to the town for taxes, plus the 2.5% added onto the levy property value annually. The library failed, in my opinion, to get this project right, first with the town folks, the Board of Selectmen, FinCom, the town administrator, the town CPA, and the voters before drawing up any plans or spending any money prior to getting any input from all of the above. It is not a matter that the library trustee take orders from other town officials, but first having public hearings on the idea of building a new library or renovating the current space with cost data before any plans were introduced. It was done in the opposite means. The library trustee is an elected body, but not a body that's empowered to create debt for the taxpayers of this great community.
Sir, if you could wrap up your comments, we've got a number of people in line, and I think we understand your point of view.
Well, I don't consider when you don't let me finish what I asked to do. This is a matter of democracy, and I think I should have the right to say because
I think everyone here has a right to say what they like to say.
And I think I came to you and asked you to be able to do the same thing in opposition that they was presenting. Now, if you don't want me to finish, then I'll just go away because I think you're mistreating me.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Del Priore.
Jared L. Priore, New Estate Road. It sounds like we're not committing any funds tonight. We're just setting in motion the ability to apply for a grant. If the grant comes in, we have a chance to vote. Jared L. Priore, New Estate Road. And another question, Mr. Moderator, to the Finance Committee. In the past, we have had debt exclusion overrides. I assume some of those are being paid off. Other debts, like the high school, are being paid off. Is any of that money going to be available to offset the new costs of additional debt for the library?
Okay, thank you. Finance Director?
Thank you. Bonnie Holston, Finance Director. That retired debt service is actually being used to pay for the debt service that's going to be issued for the fire station project and the alumni field renovations.
Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
1 second.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, because I feel that you are being the moderator and not let me exercise my rights here tonight, I want you to know I'm going to file a complaint with the state in regards to what the vote is, because I think that this is not the right way to do a citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Can I
Yes,
speak
sir.
now? I'm glad I didn't bring my notes. All right, he has the right to express himself. My name is Gino Faralloni, 26 Howard Avenue. I'm trying to be very polite because my wife is here. All right. They always tell me I'm a little rough on the edges. All right, my question is, the state will give them $6 million, okay? And just to put their foot in. I understand a lot of people ask me, Gino says, can you mention something if you have a chance to go to the town meeting, why they built the library? I said, well, because for one thing, probably they feel they need a library. It would be nice. But people don't realize. We fought for a police station, which they needed very badly. Now we do the fire station, which we need very badly, okay? And now I think the library says, well, maybe it's time for the library. But I don't think personally they realize that if you, let's say you have $2,000 in the bank and you spend $5,000, where are you going to get the money? Well, the town says, well, we can't afford to pay the extra amount of money. It's only $200. I say to the finance, without any insult, I love you guys, but the question is, the interest is going to grow up, and the amount that you see there, 200, is going to be more than that. So just to let you know, you don't anticipate the interest when it goes up. The question is, maybe the time is to wait a little bit. Let's pay for the police station, and the school and the fire department, those are the heroes that we have here in Littleton. This is a little town. I'm from Venice, Italy. I feel that Littleton is like a little village. I love you, all of you guys. But the question is, money is all tight, very tight. A lot of elderly, they call me, say, Gino says, what are they going to do at the town meeting? So why don't you come? Well, we can't come because we trust you. You can speak for us. I'm a very shy individual. Why they ask me to speak for them? You know? Oh, because you love everybody. Of course I love everybody. You don't want me to be picked up by the police station and the fire department to throw me out because I probably get a little rough on the edges. The question is, we have to be content with what we have now and be a little passionate. I know that board worked very hard. I happened to go to the CPA, CPC, and they were very, very courteous with me because they know I went with a different hat. Okay? Now I have to go to the planning board with a different hat. The question is, I'm here with a different hat as an individual. So what we have to do is let the people vote, not here. Put them on the ballot because we have a lot of people in Littleton. They have the right to vote. I close my comment, and just remember, no offense, I love you all. I love to have a library. Oh, yes, I like to have a Cadillac, too.
All right. All right, thank you. Yes, at this microphone.
My name is Judy Grandy. I live on Oak Ridge Road, and I've been a patron of the library for the almost 30 years I've lived here. I want to say, first of all, just to reiterate, we're not committing to spending any money tonight. If we decide, if we are allowed to submit the grant, and they give us the time, and they tell us the year, because we still don't even know what year it's going to be, then we have to vote on it. If we decide not to vote the money, then we don't get the grant, we don't get a new library, but we don't spend any money. But if we don't submit the grant, we're going to have to wait 6 years before we can even talk about this again. And I just think that it's, you know, there's a lot of work to be done at the library if we're going to keep the current building. The elevator Sam mentioned, the roof is a constant problem. The lack of handicap accessibility, the meeting rooms at the library are almost continuously booked and overbooked. We need the space, we need the ability to stay up to date technologically. One thing that I am very pleased to say is that I am also part of the fundraising committee. We already have, as Mark mentioned, $250,000 from the trustees to go toward the cost of the library. I had word today that someone, an anonymous donor, is going to give a $50,000 matching challenge. If we can raise $50,000 by the end of the fiscal year, that will be matched. So we will have another $100,000 toward the cost of the library that the town won't have to pay. Now, I know there are a lot of very generous people here. I know there are a lot of people who are struggling financially. But I think we've got the ability to do this. And in my other hat, I'm a professional fundraiser, a grant writer, not fundraiser. But I see a lot of grants out there that we would be eligible for if we have the matching funds from the state. So every penny that we get in from a grant or an individual is something that's going to help pay off the debt faster. And I would ask you just to approve this tonight. It gives us time to think, time to plan more than we already have. But to shut it off for 6 or 8 years just doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Luigi Icabello. I live at Mill Pond, 50 Mill Road. I'm wondering if we're not putting books ahead of people. There is not a vacant apartment for seniors in this town. There are waiting lists in every complex, especially those subsidized by HUD or Section 8. So people, older people, that can't afford to pay their taxes or the upkeep of their homes are having to sell them. They have nowhere to go. If they have no family or they're basically homeless. So we got a bunch of books sitting here that are in a building that's secure, and we got people, human beings, that are on the street because they have nowhere to go. Why don't we use the money and the land to build apartments for veterans and for seniors? Why don't we take and put human beings ahead of inanimate objects? I don't understand why people are going to vote. I'll give you an example. They vote no for cigarettes and yes for marijuana cigarettes. The state had to make up the taxes, so they legalized marijuana. Now, we got $7 million, allegedly, that we have to pay for this building. How many units could we build for seniors and for veterans? Please, consider human beings first. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jane Bracken. I live on King Street. I've lived in Littleton since 1972, and I have been a library user all that time. I am a retired librarian. 35 years ago, I was a trustee of the Reuben Hoare Library when it was still housed in what is now the Historical Society building. And with a great deal of effort, we went to town meeting and we got a project approved for a new library to move the building across the street and add to it. That fell afoul with the historical folks, so we came back to town meeting, we got it voted to build a new building on the site basically where the castle in the trees is now. Town meeting voted for it. Dancing in the streets, right? You see that library over there? No. What happened? What happened was the town treasurer at that time, rest in peace, refused to bond it because Proposition 2.5 was coming at us. So we ended up with a cockamamie, fill in the blanks kind of a library, and which is doing a very good job. But under that 2.5, we funded a new high school, we've got a police station, we've got a fire station, we've redone all the schools, we got the track a couple times, we got the alumni field. What's wrong with books? Also, briefly, I would put out that I am a senior citizen, and I am the spouse of a retired veteran, and a couple $100 would be big bucks to me, no doubt about it. But I save thousands of dollars every year using the Reuben Hoare Library, the books that come in from all over the network, the DVDs, the CDs, the programming. And it's open to all ages, from toddlers to probably Hazel Plummer at 109, who knows. But I just think that this is a project that deserves at least this first step. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two people up in the cafeteria that would like to ask questions, so we're going to go to the cafeteria now to hear from them.
Hi there, my name's Eileen Wiedegartner from Maplehurst Road. I am a lifelong resident of the town. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Bracken had to say about the movement of the library from the Historical Society to Shattuck Street. As a 12-year-old kid, I remembered it with enthusiasm. It was great. I remember in high school, in a graduating class of 45 students, knowing that I could get certain segments of the library to myself with my friends to do our studies. You can't do that anymore. The library is an important place. It's the bedrock of democracy. And it's important that when my mother, who is 79, takes my daughter to the library, that she can make it to the third floor. She can't right now. It's hard. And that's unfortunate. On top of that, I think it's very important that we start to think about what it means for our town to say, we're going to invest in our future, and we're going to invest in our community, and we're going to invest in meeting space and a community rec area. I love the idea as a citizen that the current one is right up the path, that students from Russell Street or the middle school can walk up there after school, that potentially it can be used to do intergenerational community projects. It can be used for keeping the campus in one area for senior citizens, which I know Pamela had mentioned at one of the COA meetings. She really enjoyed the fact that seniors could be in one area and still use the school. I'm having a lot of trouble as a lifelong citizen understanding why we wouldn't move forward saying yes to potential money from the state, to saying yes to potential more space from the town, to saying yes to expanding the ground of knowledge we have already. As a little side note before I shut down, I'm going to say I went to the library to get at one point War and Peace, a certain version of it that had certain notes within it, and they didn't have it. We had to go through another area and get it to us. It's a shame that has to happen within the town. It's a shame that's not within the stacks, and I'm not faulting the library for that at all. But I think as our town grows and as our needs grow for a new school, a new library, a new police station, we also need to expand the library. It's been on the horizon since I was 12. And, I'm going to date myself. That was 30 years ago. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from one more in the cafeteria.
Hi, I'm Heidi Madison, 9 Maplehurst. My concern is mostly about the ADA requirements, not speaking specifically about the elderly in ADA compliance, but I have a 14-year-old daughter who is in a wheelchair, and she requires an extreme amount of assistance to access the library. In trying to access the library previously, it's extremely difficult. The elevator is really small. I need to get up a few stairs just to get her to a point where I can access the elevator. And then once I get upstairs, her wheelchair is too wide. She's just a child, but still her wheelchair is too wide to navigate the aisles. We can't get to the restroom if we need to. And because of this, my other 2 children can't access the library with us. So in strictly ADA, I would benefit personally from a new library, but also I would love to see my children grow up with access to a library, to information and education, internet access and online access is also a valuable part of our upcoming society, which also is part of the library and part of our society and education system. So I am in favor of a new library for those reasons. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the center microphone in the gym now, because you've been waiting a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Gabrielle Eidenwild, 123 Harvard. Quick comment, one, that literacy and the access to education beyond schools is a cornerstone of democracy, and it is incredibly important that we maintain that within our community so we don't have to keep going to other places. It will be here, but that's just the comment. Really quick question for, I believe, the trustees. Could you please clarify, nutshell, if possible, the site selection? It's a slope site, which seems like that would be more expensive to build on. I'm just really curious about that. I'm really sorry I missed those meetings.
Okay, thank you. Library trustees?
Mark Rambacher, through you to the previous speaker. We've looked at several sites in town. We looked at remodeling the existing library and expanding. We looked at ripping down the existing building and building a new structure there. Both of those were deemed to be more expensive than building a new building. We also looked at 3 alternative sites: the slope site, the tennis courts, and building on the Morgan property. The Morgan property had the disadvantage of an extra cost for the road. There wasn't a lot of community support for building on that, whether or not it would be conservation versus fields or something else like that. We also, MBLC did not look favorably on the Morgan property because they liked the library to have some visibility from the road, and in the Morgan property it would be set too far back so you couldn't see it. We also looked at the tennis court site. We looked really hard, and we had plans drawn up for the tennis court site. The problem was where we could relocate the tennis courts to, and how that process would go was one of the issues. There was talk of moving the tennis courts to the high school, but there's not room at the high school without a lot of work because you would take up parking spaces, and the whole process got really bogged down at going to the tennis courts. When we started doing the financials, it looked like building on the tennis courts versus the slope site would be about the same because the only additional expense at the slope site versus a fire access road. So we would have to take the road off of Shattuck Street there that is a paved road would have to be widened so that they could have access to the fire department could have lower access to the building. There was really not any other additional expenses associated with the slope site over any other vanilla property. So,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, to my right.
Frank, 6 Green Needles Road. When I think of Littleton, I think of community. The people I laugh with during my children's baseball games, my daughter's ever-expanding drama club, and the teacher that adds performances rather than cuts kids, our family campouts with Cub Scouts, and the annual day in June that my kids excitedly sign up for summer reading at the library. My children are growing up in a wonderfully active and supportive community. As a community, it is our responsibility to take care of our town. We need to take care of dated and outgrown facilities. A library is integral to any vibrant community. A town without a strong library is lacking. We spend hours at the Reuben Hoare Library as a family. We get books. Our last trip there, my daughter checked out $527 worth of books. We get museums. My daughter has her Girl Scout meetings there. When my son was in 2nd grade, he wondered if there was a place where he could play chess against other kids. Mrs. Haddock listened to Timothy's request. She looked through the busy Cooper Room schedule, and for a while, Littleton had a children's chess club. It goes without saying, I love our library. I love our librarians, but Reuben Hoare is clearly too small, and it is not accessible to all. Littleton loves to read, as indicated by the high circulation numbers for our population. We love to come together, as is evidenced by the always booked Cooper Room. A library is so relevant to our community. I am voting yes tonight, yes to continue with the grant application. See what happens, see if and how much we are awarded. And in the meantime, we work together as the community that we are and explore other options as well. To me, voting yes is a win-win. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll go back to the cafeteria now.
Hi, my name's Corey Stack from 40 Bulkley Road. I was actually here with my son Connor, and we were sort of listening to all this. And he was asking, when are the kids going to get up and talk about it? But he's a little nervous. But it did make me think, and made a lot of us think, that if you look around the room here in the cafeteria, and I bet if you look around that room in there, you're missing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who use the library every day. And I wanted to make sure we remember that these guys who use the library too, they don't get a vote, they don't get a say, but we got to keep in mind they're part of the benefactors of all this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir, right here in the middle.
My name is Michael Whitney from 9 Mason Brook Lane. First of all, I just want to let people know I have nothing against books. I think you just became the unfortunate straw that broke the camel's back. I think there's a lot of people in town, specifically on fixed income, that are tired of the town's lack of sensitivity in what incremental taxes cause. I think it was disingenuous when some of the stuff rolled off the books and you said, oh, we don't have to increase the taxes because we can just roll the high school into the fire department or vice versa. I think it would have been much more beneficial to the town to actually consider lowering the taxes, which would have been nice. Over the last 10 years, the rate of inflation is approximately 1.87%. It's almost impossible to get anything on a savings account or a CD, basically zero. So if you're somebody living on a fixed income or Social Security, your incremental gain has been less than optimal. At the same time, the cumulative inflation rate for the 10 years was about 20%. During that same 10 years, the town taxes have gone up by 50%, or 2.5 times, or 4+% annualized. So somehow the town must feel that it's okay to spend at a rate that's 2.5 times what the person on a fixed income is basically dealing with on a regular basis. And again, my issue is not with the library. Like I say, I think you just became the person that aggravated me to the point where I'm up here saying that I'm tired of the town coming up with one project after another, high school, middle school, which they told us they didn't need when they asked us to vote in the high school. Then we need AstroTurf on the field. Then we have to have a new police department. We have to have a new fire department. Somehow we think we've become the Taj Mahal of central Massachusetts. So I think fixed income people have just had it right up to their eyeballs with you people deciding to spend our money and zealots coming in one project after another. If it gets knocked down, they just come back again. Well, I'm hoping that if this somehow gets passed, we can come in and unvote it, because that seems to be what happens to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Dina Flockhart, 61 Gilson Road. By the way, my father-in-law is the guy who renovated the Shattuck Street School into the library. He wanted to do the high school too, but you turned him down. Couple comments before I go to the library. I've heard a lot about seniors tonight, and I noticed there were 2 warrants that they probably ought to pay attention to. One is the tax abatement program, which you can apply for if you're on a fixed income, and the other is the accessory in-law apartments, which would really be quite a boon to the low-income housing for the town if they were approved. Back to the library. I remember a couple years ago, I think my memory is correct, we had a budget crisis and reduced hours for the library, and there was some talk about danger of losing certification, and I was wondering if, I thought I heard something about having to discard books and buy a certain number of new books to keep your certification. So if we don't get a new library, what is the chances that we could lose our certification? That's one question. And the second question, or second comment is, I was hearing that July is the earliest you'll hear about the grant, and that money will be rolled out over, what is it, a 6-year time frame or an 8-year time frame? So there is a chance that money could actually stay on hold until our debts are mostly paid off.
Okay. Trustees? Library Director?
So as far as certification goes, we'll remain certified as long as we keep spending the money that the MAR requirement gives us. So basically, for those of you that don't know, in order to be certified as a library, libraries have to spend about 20% of the budget that they receive. So last year, that was about $103,000 just on materials, books, DVDs, databases. This year, it's $106,000. Next year, it'll be about $110,000. It goes up in about incremental, about 2 to 5%. We also have to be open for a certain amount of hours. Right now, we are open for those hours, and we are spending the money on the materials, but the issue really isn't that we're not spending the money to be certified, it's that we're removing older books that really are only like 3 years old, when normally a library would remove books after about 5 to 7 years. And really only the books that are not really needed, but for this because of our space requirements, we have to make some hard decisions about what we keep and what we get rid of. And so basically, those are your, that's money that we could be spending on other things, but it's really having to go away. So yeah. Was that the only question? Yes.
Okay, is that? Okay, there's someone up in the cafeteria that would like to speak. If you'd step forward to the microphone, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Ellen Brooks, and I live in Shattuck Street. And listening to people speak tonight pulls my heart in both directions, both good and bad. I do believe in a community you need a vibrant library. And I thank the good Lord that in my past, I've had a good education. But I do think now that I live at Shattuck Street, think about this. We do not have enough parking spaces for everyone there. So therefore, some people have to park in the visitors' parking lot. If we have company, they may not have a parking spot at all, because just not one apartment may have a visitor. It may be 10 apartments that have a visitor, which will be 10 additional cars. So there's no place to park. I have had company at the house, but I've had to ask them to carpool, which has been rather strange. There are a lot of safety issues. Our parking lot, the visitors' parking lot, the light there is terrible. It's an unsafe area to walk in at night. We need more lighting. The dumpster is in a puddle of mud. So to get to throw our trash away, we had to walk through a couple of inches of mud. So therefore, the authorities there have decided to put wooden planks down on top of the mud so we could get to throw our trash away. Except what happens is, when the mud is put on the wooden planks, it's like a skating board. It is so slippery. So you either slide into the mud or you fall into the mud, and either way, there's mud on your face. It's a horror show. If this is what has happened to me, the lighting is so poor, when I went out to my vehicle, there are a couple of puddles that were where the ground level is deeper. You fall in it. If there's no light to see, you fall in it. Behind my building, there is my yard, probably has a slope that's 15 feet in depth from the back of the building. If you walk down there, there's a 20-foot drop. No fencing at all. I do understand that they tried to put fencing up behind one building, but it never got completely done. There are a lot of, and we have 48 units for the elderly. We have one maintenance man for 20 hours a week. We have no maintenance people as far as the lawn is concerned. And today, someone mowed the lawn that had never even been raked.
Excuse me, ma'am, do you have a
It's
comment
terrible.
on the library?
Excuse me?
Do you have a comment on the library proposal?
Yes, I do. I
Okay,
do,
if
to many
you
ways, support the library, but I
start
do
to wrap
think
up.
that we need to support the elderly people of this town so that they can live in a clean environment. I have a septic tank blowing up in the bottom of my shower. Thank you.
Okay. Did someone move the question? Okay. Moving the question is akin to a motion to close debate. It's not... Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. And we're still in the special town meeting, and we've been at this one almost an hour. And, you know, I think some people want to still be heard. Let's take a few more comments, but then I'd like to talk about how we're going to vote on this, if you don't mind. I think we were back at the center microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alex Pratt, Birch Road. I wanted to start with some clarifying comments for everyone here to help ground us in this conversation that we're having. This vote is not going to dedicate money to any project. This grant would solely dedicate money to a library project if we came back at a later town meeting and voted to pursue that. I consider this opportunity before us tonight as an opportunity to explore, to learn more. The library trustees, the Board of Selectmen, the FinCom, and many other groups in town have been at this project for 2 years, learning information, looking at a vast number of sites, lots of different options, working with engineers. Let's keep that process going forward. The other comments I wanted to make were more personal. I grew up in Littleton, and I spent a lot of time at the library. First, learning to read, learning to get to know the community. But then when I was in school, I was very easily distracted at home, let's put it that way. So going to the library was how I was able to be successful as a student, K to 12. When I think about the younger Mr. Stack who joined us a few minutes ago, but was too shy to speak at the microphone in the cafeteria, and I think about the library we have now, we've had this library for a while. It has met our needs well for a while. But right now there are too many accessibility concerns, too many structural concerns, limited space, and high demand for community meetings. I think we've all seen that, we've all been a part of that, and more than 7,000 residents in Littleton are borrowers at the library. What I would ask you to do is for all of us, for the younger Mr. Stack, who was there earlier in the cafeteria, and for the senior who cancels her newspaper subscriptions and her internet subscription because she can get that at the library, to continue this project, to continue to move forward, to think about the young, the old, and everyone in between. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Brian Tarbox, Fletcher Lane. In the interest of time, I'll skip what I was going to say, because it's interesting. While I was standing up here waiting, my son texted me and said, "Dad, after you're done defending the library, are you going to come home and read to me?" So don't tell me it's just books. This is community. We talk a good game about community. The library is the community center. It's been in line. It's time. Let's vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we've got someone up in the cafeteria now.
Hi, Jan O'Callahan, Dalton
Could
Road.
move closer to the microphone, please.
Okay, I was going to try to make it short and sweet. I'm also a rising senior, and I'm supposed to look over here, okay. And I'm hoping to retire in a couple of years, and I'm not expecting to have a lot of extra income to pay a lot of extra taxes. The fact of the matter is, we really don't know what our tax increase would be, because we don't know how much money the Friends are going to raise. We don't know what's going to happen with inflation. We don't know. There's a lot of unknown factors. So what is the point of stopping the process now, where we've already invested money in assessment and evaluation, and it just doesn't seem to make any sense to turn our backs on the potential for $6 million when we really don't know what our tax increase will be. So I hope we'll all vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Right in the center here. Yes?
My name is Vera Spoor. I've lived here many, many years, and as one person said, it was... My kids, too, very much enjoyed the library, got a lot from it. I think that an A1 town like Littleton is and is trying to be needs a good library, needs a library that's accessible. I have to say that when the woman who spoke about not being able to bring her family because one of her children is in a wheelchair, that is very, very hard. That is not necessary. And worst case, if it would be $200 for an average household up in taxes in the future, not now. That still is less than $1 a day. It seems to me that Littleton needs this library.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Bill Koromis, Lake Warren Drive. My question is for the trustees over there. We're going to be borrowing money for 20 years. How long will the new building last? How much space will there be for the books that you want? You want all the extra space. So I want to make sure there's enough planning involved to make sure that we don't visit this again in 10 years, and especially since we're spending all this money.
Okay, thank you.
While you asked that the library trustees address your question, because the architect is here and has designed many libraries, we think it's appropriate for him to answer you.
Okay. Hearing no objection, I'll assume unanimous consent to allow a non-resident to speak to the question.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Moderator. My name is Philip O'Brien, Johnson Roberts Associates, and to answer your questions, the grant process, the program that Sam had put together before we were hired takes you out at least 20 years. That's a minimum in order to get a grant. And another requirement of the grant is that you design a building that will last a minimum of 50 years. And so that's what we're looking at. And in my experience, it will last longer than that. You're probably looking at a 100-year building.
Thank you.
How long did the old or the present building last?
1951 was originally designed as an addition onto the school, and then it was renovated to house the library in 1989.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, center microphone.
My name is Harvey Atkins from Newtown Road in Littleton, and I've had a library card here since 1952, so I've been there a few times. My thought on the subject is that if I was building some additions on my house, I probably wouldn't build more than 2 anyway at any one time. But now we're asked to finance a third in the town. We have the football field being renovated. We have the fire station being built. We don't know exactly if the bids are going to be exactly on mark when the projects are finished. How do we know that's, what was bid is going to be the final payment, what we're going to pay? Also, the fact is that, so I'm kind of saying, I want the new library, but I would like to see it postponed a little while. And my question is, if you get approval tonight and you put in for the grant and it's approved in July or whenever it goes before the state, would you be coming to the town in November for approval of the $8 million? Or when would you plan to do it?
Library trustees?
So we don't know when the grant will be approved. After the grant, in July, the state looks at all of the libraries that submitted the grants, which I think is around 30. They rank them all, and then they pick the neediest libraries out and offer them a grant in July. Everyone else is ranked and put on a waiting list. After July, you kind of know where your place falls on the waiting list, and you can do a better calculation of when you would receive your grant. When we submitted our grant application, we asked not to be considered for July, but you really don't have complete control over it. So we do not anticipate coming back in November asking for money because we don't anticipate that we're going to get the grant in July. We might, but it's completely outside of our control at the moment. We're waiting on the state. We have asked not for July, but they could make their own determination.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Also, the fact is that Littleton has about 25% of seniors in it, and I do know that I had no pay increase for the last 6 or 7 years, And now we are asking for a lot of money from seniors that are not getting increases to match what the town is asking us for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am?
Charlotte Russell, 73 Foster Street. I'm a musician, so I wish I had a fixed income. I don't even have that. And $200 is a lot of money for me. But our library is woefully short on space for both resources and meeting rooms. I echo what Mr. Tarbox said, that a library in 2018 is not about books. It is about people. It's about the bereavement group that meets there. It's about people who can't afford internet access at home, so come to the library to get it. It's about my elderly friend who just moved to this town from another town and was very disappointed that she cannot access the library because of physical disabilities. There are a lot of issues to weigh in this town. It's a hard decision and a complicated one, but I really think we need our library.
Okay, center microphone again.
Karen Amy Rose, Shattuck Street. I'm just trying to put together everything I've heard tonight and thinking about all of the people that we've heard who cannot actually access our library, from children to grandparents, and how important it is to build a building that they can access. There have also been a lot of really fabulous points made about fiscal responsibility, and there's a huge amount of momentum on pressure to be incredibly responsible. Tonight's vote is on pursuing a matching grant. My company offers matching on 401k. It's never occurred to me to storm into HR and demand to know why they are trying to force me to get extra 50% on my money. So a no vote at this point would forfeit a 50% match. The $13 and change per month is a worst case scenario. The trustees have presented ideas about additional grants, they have committed to additional fundraising, they have committed to come back with the leanest plan that they can and to have a real funding plan in place that would probably be less than that $13 per month by the time this really happened. So it seems to me that it's pretty obvious the fiscally responsible thing is to pursue the grant and not forfeit the momentum that we've created around forcing this group to be incredibly focused and conservative. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
John Tully, Berry Bush Road, and I too would like to speak in favor of the library. Heard some comments here about the library as a place to house books. Newsflash, it's for a place for people to use books and other information resources. And as has been mentioned before, some people use it, some people who wish to save the cost of the internet service at their home are able to access the internet at the library. But also access museum passes and various meeting facilities, which are very restricted in the current library. We need more space. This is a facility that's available to a much wider cross-section of the community than the $4 million playing field we approved last year. So let's get real, folks, and move this one ahead.
Thank you. All right, let's finish with the two folks in the center.
I'm Jillian Shaw, 10 Sleigh Ride Lane. I'd like to make a statement, then I'd also have a question to follow up with that. I'd actually like to answer a question that was asked very kindly and civilly, I might say, on social media from Jan, who I believe is in the cafeteria. First, let me say I appreciate the way that she posed the question. Why are you against the grant application? I have to say I 100% support our library and appreciate what it brings to our community. I am not anti-library, but I do oppose the grant and will be voting no tonight. I truly wish the trustees had involved the taxpayers over the past 6 years. Unfortunately, it has only come to the attention of the taxpayers in the last 6 months. the same time that the grant had to be submitted. If you want the community behind you, you need to engage, educate, and listen to the taxpayers. With so many needs in our community, and I'm going to name a few, our seniors need more space, housing, and funding. Our schools are growing at a rate we cannot keep up with. The incoming kindergarten class was projected to have 95 students, but on the first day of registration, 120 kids registered. There are roads that are deteriorating. We have needs for space for Park and Rec, the school department, as well as the town offices. The grant will take 5 to 7 years and will be awarded to the library to be built at a cost of $13+ million. I personally do not believe that all the options were considered by the trustees. I believe that we can accomplish more with less money. The discussions and ideas that have come out over the past few months show this. For example, the DCU building and the possibility of moving the town offices to that location and expanding the library, as well as the Council on Aging and Park and Rec within the leftover space. Or building a joint library with another town that we could receive up to 75% of that build. A multi-age center and other ideas. The trustees' answers to the new ideas have been, we're sorry, but we've already submitted the grant and is now to the slope site at 23,000 square feet plus or minus and a cost of $13 million. That will be the same answer for the next 5 to 7 years while we wait for the grant to be awarded. How do we as a community plan for our future with so many needs while being held to a plan that is too big and too much money and cannot be changed? Getting in line to wait for the grant only prolongs the answer we already know. We cannot spend $13 million and solve one of our many problems. I do appreciate the work that the trustees have done. My no vote tonight is only asking them to go back to the drawing board to find a plan that better suits our community and its overall needs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a resident in the cafeteria that would like to speak.
Janine Wood, 12 Christina Street. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to move the question.
Okay. Well, we've got a motion to move the question, which is a motion to close debate. It's been moved and seconded, and it's not debatable. So we'll immediately proceed to a vote. All those in favor of closing debate signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? No. Okay, that's a 2/3 majority, and I do declare it to be a vote. Thank you very much. The debate is closed on the article. I'm sorry we had one person in line, but that happens sometimes. All right. It's a 2/3 majority that's required because the general laws require a 2/3 majority for a transfer of land. I'm not going to attempt to get this right on a voice vote. You know, it turns into kind of a contest of who can shout the loudest sometimes. My preference would be to do this by hand count. If a majority of you can convince me you want to try out these new ballot boxes, I'm not opposed to that either. But otherwise, we'll need some counters and we'll do a hand count. Well, why don't I just do a straw poll here? Please raise your hand if you'd rather vote by ballot and checklists and use the ballot boxes. Please raise your hands. Okay. Thank you. And how about if you don't want to vote in that fashion? Okay, that's clearly the majority. So we're going to do a hand count, and we'll need, Madam Clerk, we'll need some tellers. And if everyone just kind of hang tight for a moment, we're going to get someone who will count your section when the time comes. Remember, yes vote, obviously, when I say obviously, is in favor of the proposal, and it's a 2/3 majority that's required. And if in the cafeteria you would prepare for the same scenario, that would be appreciated. That's it. Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone if you've got a point of order.
I noticed that there were a lot of people in the auditorium, including kids. someone has got to make sure that only those who are certified voters can vote by hand vote.
Yes, the town clerk's aware of that issue, and non-voters have been asked to sit in certain areas, so. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have tellers? All right, I think we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by raising your right hand and leaving it up there until you're certain you've been counted. The yes votes are in favor of the proposal by the library trustees to proceed with the project. It's not a vote to fund the library, as was stated. What's he doing over there? Is he double counting it? Oh. Yeah. Do you have everyone? No, I'm waiting for... We need... Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand and leave it up there until you've been counted. This is the vote in opposition. So Melissa, you ready to, because I think while they're counting, you can move on to the next item.
To the library, yeah.
The sewer.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be all right. It's gonna be fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe. town clerk is tallying the vote. Normally, we'd move on with the next item, but I think it's probably appropriate to wait until we get the result. All right, I do have the total here for you. There were 595 ballots passed. A two-thirds majority would have been 396 votes in favor. There were, in fact, 415 votes in favor. Four 415 votes in favor, 180 opposed. The motion does pass by the necessary two-thirds majority, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. I realize that some of you may be leaving us now, and that's fine. Please take your leave quietly. We're going to actually go on with the rest of the town meeting, but and if I'm sure you want to talk about what just happened, but please do it out in the parking lot if you would. Thank you. We will now move on to Article 5 of the special town meeting. FY17 capital improvements. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to transfer from undesignated fund balance the sum of $211,640 for the capital projects and purchases itemized and described in Article 5. If I could have it quiet, please. There are, in fact, two parts, a Part A and a Part B to this article. And presenting Part A, Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan, is Selectman Melissa Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to go ahead and recap some important items about this important project. Number one, just get us up to speed on where we've been to date, a little bit of background, a current state update, where we are today, then a quick reminder on what a smart sewer is, some of the benefits.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Thank you. Some of the benefits of that, the smart sewer system, a little bit about financing and who can participate, what the phases will include, a couple of quick FAQs, and then we'll go ahead and move on. All right, so just to recap again where we've been in terms of the sewer topic. Back in 2001, the Water Department and the Board of Health raised concerns to the Board of Selectmen on a couple of different fronts. First, we're seeing a diminished replenishment of our aquifer and well water, as well as a concern about increase in the nitrate concentration in the downtown area. At about around the same time, the assessors advised the selectmen that we needed to do a better job of working on economic development, increasing our tax base so we can keep the tax rates down on the citizens, and sewer was identified as a significant opportunity to help with economic development. And I'll touch on a little bit more about the details, but that's the history of where the conversation came up. And those red flags gave the Board of Selectmen and other boards enough to really get going and thinking about what do we need and what made sense. So in 2010, a Littleton Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Committee was established. And they did a lot of really good work. They worked with the Charles River Watershed Association to do a sewer feasibility study. They did community surveys. They worked with prospective participants. They looked at different sites. They evaluated a smart sewer versus a traditional sewer, and they came out of that with a unanimous recommendation around a smart sewer solution. Just at our last 2016 special town meeting, a town meeting did vote to approve $252,000 for a Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan, and a flurry of work did get underway. I'll get to that in a second. And Chairman Avella of the Master Plan Update Steering Committee gave an update earlier tonight. The master plan has been adopted, 2030 master plan, and Littleton Common has been identified as a strategic theme in the master plan, and wastewater treatment is one of the top recommendations to resolve. Thank you. Bringing us up to current state. So as of right now, or just a few months ago, the RFQ for the Littleton Common Sewer Smart Design went out. We were lucky enough to get 4 really well-qualified applicants. We interviewed 3 of them. Weston Sampson, who's here tonight, was selected, and they've gotten to work right away. On the April 24th selectmen meeting, we did do a public Q&A session that is recorded by our friends at LCTV and on demand. And tonight we're here with Article 5A requesting an additional $200,000 for the Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan. So I'm going to touch on a high level what that entails. There are 2 phases, but I think the summary of these are these bullets right here. A financial evaluation. There's a lot of different ways we can pay for this sewer, public-private partnerships, public only, and the financing does depend heavily on the options that we choose as a community to put in this sewer. So it's about figuring out more about the financial evaluation. Whittling down the site selection, so really focusing in on what some few sites might make sense. We can go into the site selection phase. Increasing and continuing with public participation, so that's both with prospective participants of the sewer as well as the community at large. Deciding, again, I mentioned we have a lot of things we can choose to use in terms of technology. There's lots of different ways we can go about treating wastewater within a smart sewer ecosystem. So this phase 1 and phase 2 would really be figuring out what our technology preferences are. And last, we'd actually get into the preliminary design phase. So that's where we're at. Just as a reminder, some key takeaways about what a smart sewer is. Well, the smart sewer is it uses cutting edge technology and really has an energy efficient design. So not only are they smaller systems than a traditional full sewer, and they use less energy because they are smaller, but they also generate energy in the process. And that energy can be used to heat or cool buildings that surround the plant. It can be used to be sold to reduce the cost of participating in the sewer. It can be used in a lot of different ways. Also, the water, if you see in the top right, the diagram might be hard to see, but the point of what it's trying to show is that on the left-hand side, the water and the food waste are going into the system. They're being collected, treated, and then 2 things happen. One is that the water that we've treated and kind of made to drinking level quality can be reused. So it can be reused to water lawns, fields, by businesses and their sinks and toilets. It can also be even used by our town facilities. So it's really treating water as a resource as well, and something I'm going to show you just in 1 second here. The other concern is about, again, replenishing our aquifer. So if I can just give you a visual of how a smart sewer would do that, and I'm going to try to point. It's going to be a little bit hard for folks to see in the back. But if we look at this map, what it's showing, it's an overlaid map of several different maps, and the darkest green areas signify the highest areas to be protected when it comes to water. So whether we have wells near them or they're near bodies of water, etc., this basically gives us a visual way to show where we need to protect water in our town. If you notice, The town common area is one of 3 kind of major areas that we need to focus on. Now, if I show you the next slide, what this is showing, the dots are where our wells are located, the dots are where our wells are located, and you can see most of our wells are actually located on the left-hand side of Route 110. Why that's important and what this has to do with getting the water back and replenishing our aquifers is because 110 is actually kind of an apex from a geological standpoint, right? It goes up right at 110. Why that's significant? Most people, live on this side of 110, but we're taking the water from this side of 110 and bringing it over here to where the residents predominantly live. Problem is, the water can never get back to where it came from. Why? Because of that geological apex that I mentioned. Water can't go uphill. So we're taking it from the half of the town that needs the water protection the most, bringing it over to the other half with no way of getting it back to where it returned. So we're seeing some strains on our well waters and aquifers that I mentioned. And the point of the smart sewer is that not only does it generate energy, not only does it use less energy, but it will also bring the nutrients, the water, back to where it came from. Again, it will, in addition, purify that water so we can reuse it. So it's simultaneously addressing the first 2 concerns that I mentioned, which is really getting our water back to where it came from and replenishing the well water. The other is something I'll get to in a second, but that is about just making sure that we have a healthy water supply. The last point here on smart sewer, compare it to a traditional sewer. With the traditional sewer, you build out for the entire town with the max capacity in mind. No matter if you participate in the sewer or not, you pay, right? With a smart sewer, it's an opt-in model. So only those folks that are interested in participating are paying. All right, very quickly, and I touched upon some of these already. So what are some of the benefits of a smart sewer? Well, again, this is really a system that's going to make sure we have sustainability of a clean water supply, and on a couple different fronts. So again, we have the water reuse, we have the aquifer and well water replenishment, but also we're increasing the Beaver Brook base flow, say that 3 times fast, by putting water back in the aquifers and having a permanent source of recharge upstream. Environmental, so we brought up the concern about nitrates. So right now, in the Littleton downtown area, we've got about 4 to 6 parts per million in terms of a nitrate concentration. That number has been increasing. At 10 parts per million, the Department of Environmental Protection will come in and require you to do something about it. At that point, it will be, we have to sewer, and we will no longer be eligible for grants. So this is taking a proactive approach to something that will hit us someday anyway. At 20 parts per million, there are known health risks, and that's why the DEP will come in at 10 parts per million and make a town do something about it. From an economic, and there's other environmental, and the list could go on actually, but removes methane gas, it generates energy as I mentioned, but also there's an economic benefit. So we see a lot of empty storefronts in our downtown, and we've heard a lot of stories about businesses that can't locate in the downtown due to the water that they are really looking for. So if you want a coffee shop or a cafe or a mixed-use development, those things are not possible right now. The sewer will not only enable that to be possible, but if we fill empty buildings, we are going to generate revenue from a tax-based perspective. So in looking at the possibilities there, we're looking at a $2 to $2.5 million increase in annual revenue from that greater density in our downtown, which would help pay for a lot of things that we've been talking about here in our town meetings. And then we also get to see the businesses that I think a lot of us, not everyone, understand that. Not everyone wants to see businesses in the center of town. But through the master plan process, we heard overwhelming support to revitalize our common and have a vibrant downtown. Okay, just very quickly from a financing perspective, what this is kind of showing, the red dot at the red line at the top is the build out for a conventional sewer. So you build out for the possible maximum you could envision on day one. With a smart sewer, you start with a much smaller scale. You get that right, you make it a success, and you build upon it from there. So you can add capacity over time. So we start off with this first phase, and then we see how it goes and keep adding as it makes sense. In terms of financing, this process is for sure grant eligible and reimbursable, and that would be the goal, is to make sure we get back any money that we put up front for this project back through funding grants, and Weston and Sampson's already working on applying for a $150,000 grant as one of their first tasks on coming on board. But again, who pays? Well, the users of the system pay, and they pay proportionally. So if you're a larger user, you pay more than someone who is using less of the system. And then again, we have a variety of ways to generate revenue from the system. Even something like the waste that's treated, the remnants can be sold to farms to go ahead and fertilize their land. We'll reduce our tipping fees of our own if we want to put our food waste, for example, in the sewer. So we can use all those things to defray the cost of the users to make it really price-friendly to participate. In terms of scope for this first phase, we're looking at the overlay district in the Commons. So if you think about from CVS to Littleton Police Department, and then from Acton Toyota to the Littleton Inn. Okay, now that doesn't mean that folks that are sitting on the outskirts of that area, that the area can't be redefined through this process to include them, but something like the lake area would be another phase. This is really concentrating on that downtown. And in the work that the Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Committee did, the survey respondents in that area, over 95% of them were interested in participating. So again, we're here tonight to ask for an additional $200,000. That will get us through phase 1 and 2. And phase 1, again, has the financial evaluation, the site selection, public participation, and technology preferences. Phase 2 would begin on preliminary design plans, implementation, and project delivery plan, finalizing that financial plan, and then, of course, continuing the public participation. Just some quick FAQs, and then I'll wrap up on next steps. So the questions I keep hearing over and over, will this change our town's character? Our bylaws and our zoning protect our town's character, and this doesn't change our zoning. Our zoning's in our own hands, so that's a no. And if you compare that to Harvard or Groton, who have sewer, they're common. I think we'd agree that they've been able to preserve their town character. Will the facilities smell? No. The design itself is self-contained, and I've seen pictures of this located near schools, churches. Actually, there's one at the Point, so there's no smell associated. And where will the site be located or facility be located? Again, that's all part of this next phase, is to look at the available spaces, available participants, and figure out what the right site is. Okay. Next steps is applying for grants. Here we are for a 5A town meeting article. Then we'll get started on phase 1 and 2 and come back to a future town meeting with a full design and build out plan. And that is it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard with respect to Part A of Article 5 before we hear about Part B? Yes, sir.
Jared Opiore. I've got a couple of questions on the smart sewering, in particular the energy portion. I believe at town meeting last fall, the number of 80 tons a day organic waste needed to be brought in order to make that work. Is that number correct?
Actually, I wonder if Chris is here. Chris, you're here. But I do remember that 80 tons from the last town meeting. That's correct. But you're going to generate energy no matter what.
Oh, I understand that, but I just want to put 80 tons a day into perspective. I did the math. That's 29,200 tons a year. To put that in perspective, we're running about 1,700 or 1,800 tons a year through the transfer station. Or to put it another way, that's about 3 tons a year per person in town. So that's, to me, a lot of volume of material going through the plant. And I just want people to be aware of the size of what you're going to be dealing with if you get into the energy component to the scale you want to do it in.
Thank you, and I was just reminded that's about 4 truckloads a day.
Right. And coming in, and then another another 2 or 3 or however many truckloads going out with the fertilizer product. So it's not a small job, it's a good-sized plant you're building. My guess is what, megawatt class for the generator?
Yes.
Okay, in the middle?
Linda Stein, 81 New Estate Road. I have a two-part question. The first part is, what was the $252,000 that has been approved supposed to cover?
So that would cover the phase 1. There we go. Financial evaluation, site selection options, public participation, and technology preferences, as well as our contract with Weston Sampson.
And then what is specifically is the additional $200,000 that you're asking for tonight supposed to cover?
To cover phase 2, which would include preliminary design plans, implementation and project delivery plan, finalized financial plan, and continuing public participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yes, sir?
Brian Tarbox, 16 Fletcher Lane. So if I understand it, y'all want $500,000 without being able to tell us word one about where the site, anything at all about where the sites might be.
That's correct. That's part of this phase, is to evaluate several different sites and come out with some preferred site options, correct?
Okay, so $500,000 before they have any idea where it's going to go, okay? I can only imagine what would be said about that on other projects. I'd have to ask, you just said that the $252,000 was for phase 1. And now you're asking for more money, but we don't seem to have the phase 1 done because you can't tell us boo about the site selection.
Yeah, just a reminder, questions through the
sorry,
moderator.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator. And just one other comment. Your presentation seemed to indicate counting on $2 to $2.5 million in extra revenue because of the extra development that might happen in the common. And I'll say through you, Mr. Moderator, to our FinCom, what do we think about spending money that's speculative that might happen in the future or might not? We don't count on that. We never have. So I'm very leery of this.
If I may, I don't think anyone's counting on that revenue. It's a revenue projection that we could look forward to in the future. So just to be clear, that's not baked into any plan at all. And from my perspective, just learning about the sewer and the various technologies that you can use, I don't think it would be prudent to select a site without going through that process first. Depending on how we choose to design the facility will make different sites viable and different sites not. So we have to go through the process of figuring out our technology preferences.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Vera.
Vera Spohr, Newtown Road. What I'm going to speak to is how this has been done and how many people with whom I speak feel as though the process has been really awful. It seems that the town has really been shoved into a corner. Every time we come to a town meeting, there's a new sewer article. You speak about this amount of money, $200,000, another $252,000, just for concept and design. And as Brian Tarbox just mentioned, we don't know where it's going. It keeps being called...
Excuse me, could you move closer to the microphone, please?
Is that better?
Yes.
It keeps being called smart sewer. It seems to me that this is a smart selling to Littleton of a sewer. We say we want to have a nice small town feeling. I don't see that the Littleton Common should be another Point or another 119 Acton. We don't need all these wonderful stores. We might need something that is pretty, that looks nice, and I don't see businesses coming into the Littleton Common. Not now, not later, not as long as there's all the large businesses within maybe 2 miles, if that, maybe half a mile. But worst of all, to put capital improvements and plan adjustments, this amount for such a very large plan, sewer plan, along with elder human services for $11,000 to get a van. The same thing was done at our last meeting. It kind of is very underhanded. I would say it's not forthright to the people, and I don't think it gives Littleton citizens any respect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Andrea Kern, 20 Middlesex Drive. I had a question about, you said that some businesses could opt in and others not. What is a business, so like one business would say, yeah, I want this, and then the one next to it would say, no, I'm not going to do it. How does that work? And I also have a comment after that.
Yeah, good question. I think you hit the nail on the head. It is just that. It is an opt-in model where, you could say yes and your neighbor could say no. Now, that being said, again, the survey indicates near, 95% interest in the participants that are in that area, but you're absolutely right. It's totally opt-in.
So then the business that didn't opt in would have a septic tank or something?
Correct.
Okay. And my statement is that I live in the Lake neighborhood, and I would just as soon not have it in the Lake neighborhood because as it is now, that's grandfathered, that lots can be 20 by 100 feet, and the only thing that stops people from building on top of each other at this point is that they have to put in a septic system. And I really would hate to think what would happen to the Lake neighborhood if that was not, if that wasn't a restriction. That's
All right, thank you. In the center?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alex McCurdy, Harvard Road. I don't think it'll come as a surprise that I'm a skeptic of this project altogether. When I served on the Board of Selectmen, I wanted to listen carefully to all the information that was gathered and form an opinion from that. Well, I'm not on the Board of Selectmen anymore, and I'm going to share my opinion. We're talking about terms of smart sewer and cutting edge and something along those lines, very well marketed. And the goals are great goals. Who wouldn't want to increase the presence in the common to make it more of a village effect, to release some of the hardship that the current sewering problem presents? But what we don't hear is the cutting edge is what we're seeing now. We're paying for this. And in the end, we may pay for this. We may pay for it all. And in the end, at that point, what are we going to have in the common? If the people who own land in the common are mom and pop outfits and that's what we want, they will not be able to survive paying more money for sewer. But the biggest fear for me is we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg, and we have no hard, fast guarantee that we are going to recover what we've spent, or any guarantee that we will not end up spending the entire amount out of the taxpayers' pockets. And that's why I'm against it. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, Jane Crisfield, Mill Lane. Is this going to work? Okay. This project is identical to a project that we had a few years ago. At that time, we had a sewer committee, and we could go to the meetings, we could hear what they were about, we could form some opinions on it, and some of us came to believe this is not a very good project for Littleton. This is sort of the days before Facebook, so we put out a web page. We wrote letters, we attended meetings, and all of a sudden, the sewer committee became dormant. They were supposed to come to town meeting for something like over 500,000 requests to continue with the sewer project. They never came to town meeting, and I think people townwide realized this was not a good project for Littleton. Littleton may need sewers, but this particular project has a lot of problems. And when I see the presentation and you say that 95% of the users along the trajectory of the sewer are in favor of it, that's incorrect. There was a survey done then, and I think Some of the users said that they would like more information on it. You can't put that in a category of people supporting the project. People who want more information want more information. So anyway, fast forward to last November. All of a sudden, it appears on our warrant that we're going to be asked to pay or to vote for almost $250,000 for the exact same project that was dropped before. This was not preceded by a reactivation of the sewer committee. There was no real public outreach on this. It was just done by our public officials. It's in their goals, and they put it forward. The vote that night was pretty problematic, and I think Vera had mentioned that the request for the $250,000 was in an article that had two other articles in it of lesser monetary amounts. That night, the majority of people at town meeting weren't there for the sewer. They probably never even thought about it. They were there for the athletic field. So we made a vote for a yes vote for that $250,000, and we were locked into it. The plan was the money was supposed to be used for a strategic plan. That was the language used for it. So I thought, well, they're doing a strategic plan. The public has to be invited to engage in this. They have to know what this is. Nothing happened until we come to this meeting, and we're being asked to put $200,000 more into this. Nothing was done between the November meeting and the award of the grant of the project to the engineering company, which seems to be a very good engineering company. The couple of weeks ago, the selectman had a meeting, and then he devoted an hour and a half to explaining exactly what we saw here tonight. And I had asked at that meeting whether the amount that we voted on in November was sufficient for the first phase of this project, because apparently none of that money had been spent, even though we voted for it. And the answer was yes. And I asked, why are we voting $200,000 more if the engineer says he can do this for the amount that we've already voted for, and that he probably can do it in a 6 months' time? And the answer was given that, well, it's for phase 2. Well, what if due diligence by the engineering company finds that this isn't a good project for Littleton? There are many reasons why it is not. So why should we be voting tonight for another $200,000 when we haven't even spent what we voted in November? So I'm hoping that we vote against the $200,000. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Joanne Deary from Harwood Avenue, and I have several comments about this. There was a comment made about empty storefronts in the town center and that we need this sewer project so that they can be developed. And I would submit that those storefronts emptied and our downtown was hollowed out when we approved and built the Point. Because a lot of the businesses have gone there, or businesses that would maybe have come to our downtown, they went to the Point instead. There was another comment made that part of the objective of this project is to return the wastewater back to where it came from, I think on the northwest side of 110. But I don't think the project will be able to do that, because most of the homes in town which use water and which put it into their septic systems, most of those homes are actually on the southeast side of 110, and they won't be on the sewer, because the sewer's mainly for the, right around in the common area. So I don't think it'll really accomplish that objective. I also have a problem with it because I think we've been told that the users of the system are going to pay for it, but we keep coming back to town meeting and we're asked for more and more money for it. And I just wonder, when are those users going to start paying for it so we don't have to keep paying for it? And I think that if the project gets made and built, there'll have to be a loan, a big borrowing, because there's no way the 100 or so users will be able to front the money for it. And that if those users can't afford it or they default, then who's going to be on the hook for all of it is us, the town. You know, we're the one who'd be borrowing that money. So for several reasons, I just can't support this project. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Moderator. I'm Megan Ford, 28 Shattuck Street, and I also am the chair of the Littleton Common Sewer Feasibility Study Committee, and I also own a business in the Common here, Smart Audiology, within walking distance of my home. And back in 2010, May town meeting, I came right here and I was listening to the presentation about we had to vote $50,000 to form the Sewer Feasibility Study Committee, and I stood up kind of in opposition, actually. I think I voted against it because I wanted to know if there was a market study that was done, an economic study, to see if the types of businesses that would use sewer are even interested in coming to Littleton. And subsequently after that, I was asked to join the committee as a citizen at large, which I did. And I served on that committee until the present day for the last 7 years, and I made sure that an economic market study was done, and we had a professor from Boston University who did that, who projected that there are businesses that would come to this area, that in the common area, that could fill the vacancies, that would contribute back to the tax base of our town, that would trickle down to the library, the schools, the fire station, the police station, all of the things that we need. This would generate millions of dollars for our town. So this would be an investment. I can give you the anecdote. I spoke at the November town meeting. I gave a presentation. I don't know if I think a lot of you probably left, but hopefully some of you remember. But I will tell you that the building that I rent space at 435 King Street for my practice, I rented the space, signed a lease, and when I was going to have the construction done and I had to go to the town to get the permit for the construction, I was told that I may not be able to move in there because my practice is considered medical, and medical uses more septic, and they had to calculate all of the businesses that were in that building to see if there would be enough capacity for a medical business to be in there. Luckily, by a few gallons, I was able to get in, but I know that there's a lot of other vacancies, and when the bridal store next door closed down and the toy store closed down, there were several businesses that came through. I wanted a podiatrist or an optometrist, and they can't come in there. I think there was a laundromat that was looking to come there, but because of the washing machines, they couldn't come in there. So having septic systems in our business district limits the economic growth of this bedroom community that we are living in. This is a bedroom community. It's mostly residents. Residential taxes are way less than commercial property taxes. If you want to build up the economy and make a healthy economy so that we can have wonderful libraries and have all the wonderful things that you want in a town, it's got to start at this basic infrastructure. So that's all I'm going to say. I am in favor of it. And there was a no sewer committee that back in 2010, they're all speaking tonight so you can hear them, but really I think that last town meeting, with a majority of people that heard the presentation, that I, the chair of the committee, still here alive, I didn't go anywhere, people heard me and they voted largely in the majority for this. So I think that that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Harvey Atkins, Newtown Road. I kind of agree with Vera that I remember the $500,000 that was requested, and it appears that now, through the act of 2 different meetings, we've got the second half of what needs to be the $500,000. And it does seem like it's a little bit on the shadier side to get it this way. But I was also thinking that I haven't heard much from property owners along the areas that are being, requested to have this septic system put in. I don't know what kind of stores or what kind of places would go in. We have trouble enough having businesses that are in the town now affording the rentals that they are using. If you add on the sewer charges and all the other things, the price of whatever the project is going to be or whatever they're selling is going to be excessive, and people are going to go back on the internet like they've been doing and buying their goods, because brick and mortar doesn't seem to hack it. In a small town with small stores, it might be quaint, it might be good looking, it might make the common look nicer, but if the property owners now are not doing anything with their properties, when their taxes go up and their use fees go up and all the things involved with it go up, it's going to be more difficult. And also, I'd like to know where the plant is going to be, because it's going to have trucks going in and out. It's going to be possibly on the west side of 110, because there was a little mention of water being diverted from one side of town to the other, and it needs to go back. And we also have a nice big well station up on Beaverbrook Road, and how would that be affected by a plant that's going to use waste to produce energy? So I haven't gotten the answers that I need to really vote in favor of this. I'm afraid that it's a lot of money going out and no information coming in that I can really use to make my judgment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
Yes,
I know
sir.
there was a lot of points in that, but I did catch one, and that was about where the plant would be located. So it does not need to be located on the northeast side. Only the effluent disposal piece area needs to be located on that side. So we're not constrained on the site location.
All right. Yes, sir.
My name is Warren Terrell, 14 Mill Lane, Littleton, Massachusetts. I'm a retired civil engineer with long experience in wastewater treatment. I am not opposed to sewering Littleton Common area, but I am very concerned relative to the claims of the feasibility of the sale of energy, ostensibly to reduce the cost of the operation and maintenance of a wastewater treatment facility. Admittedly, this wastewater treatment system will start out as a very small facility. 100 users in the Littleton Common area will not generate a very large amount of wastewater. It has been my experience that in order to be feasible to generate energy from this wastewater, you need volumes far greater than the amounts that we are talking about for Littleton Common area. There's also been some talk in the earlier studies, and in fact, when I was on the sewer committee, we addressed the issue of how one might be able to take in waste to generate energy and resulting in sales with some way to reduce the cost. Upon further investigation relative to energy recovery, this has been only shown to be profitable in very large systems that can handle very large volumes of, say, food waste, septage, other organic materials. And one would not cite such a facility in near proximity to residential or commercial establishments. That is only if you are attempting to treat large enough volumes to secure a flow of revenue from the sale of energy. for a small system relative to the size associated with the 100 businesses in the Littleton Common area that can very safely be located in close proximity to residences and commercials. I am very concerned that in the event that this energy recovery is attempted, it's a very high-risk operation. And upon the failure of such a high-risk operation, we as the residents of the town of Littleton would be faced with paying the debt in operation and maintenance and capital debt repayment. And there's been with a lot of thought on my part that I can no longer support this study, and my recommendation to the town meeting is that this article be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Bob Zimmerman, 83 Sanderson Road. I have the distinct pleasure of being the guy that actually raised the money to do this study. And we worked with a group out of New Jersey who conceptually designed plants for Littleton. They operate 210 such plants across North America. As far as small plants like this generating energy, if you go to Battery Park in New York City, I'm sure you've heard of it, there are 6 high-rise developments there. They sell their condos for over $1 million a piece. And these plants operate inside each of those buildings. But I wanted to talk not so much about the technical aspects, but about the reasons that I got involved in this. I've lived in Littleton since 1992. I built my house in 2001. My property taxes then were about $3,000 a year. My property taxes now are about $10,000 a year. I think most of you here in the room sort of understand this. As a matter of fact, I heard a number of people concerned about property taxes, residential property taxes in town. Unless we have a solid commercial base of property taxes to help stabilize our residential property taxes, you can bet that my $10,000 a year is going to continue to rise into the future. And what's happening in the common is nothing. We can't densify there. We can't put in mixed uses. We can't put in apartments on the second floor. We can't have a law office or a restaurant or a coffee shop or a butcher or a baker or a candlestick maker right now because they can't deal with the wastewater. A smart sewer here is a way out. And Warren knows that 80 tons of wet tons of food waste does generate a tremendous amount of methane, which can spin a turbine and handle the parasitic load, that is, operate the plant and generate extra energy that can be then sold to the grid. And in Littleton, we own the grid. So we would be selling energy to ourselves. The greatest amount of energy in a wastewater is actually in the water itself. You've all heard of thermal energy, right? Geothermal energy. You drill a hole in the ground, you pump water out of the ground, you run it through a heat pump, you can heat and cool your house. That water comes into your home at about 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Wastewater comes into the plant at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. It has twice the energy and could be used to heat and cool surrounding buildings. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions because those buildings using that heat no longer have to use natural gas or fuel oil to heat the buildings. There are all kinds of wonderful environmental outcomes here. The key is to think of wastewater not as wastewater, but as my dad, the chemist, would have thought about it. It's organics and water. And if we continue to throw them away in the way that we're doing now, there's a point in the future where the Department of Environmental Protection is going to come in and tell us to build a sewer because the nitrates in the water in the ground are becoming dangerous to us. We have an opportunity to do something relatively unique, to take these technologies, put them together downtown, reduce the cost, not eliminate the cost, but reduce the cost to the 100 property owners. By the way, some of those 100 property owners are fairly sizable. They include IBM. I know the Point is not interested in being in the wastewater business. Folks, this is a real opportunity for the town to begin to stabilize its rates, to raise some property tax money in the next 3 to 5 years, to help us do things like pay for a library. So, if that makes me an evil guy, I'm an evil guy. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute, I haven't spoken yet.
Wait a minute. If I can explain something about moving the question, a previous speaker actually correctly quoted my own rule back to me. If you want to move the question, you have to do it from a microphone, and then it has to be the only thing you say on that trip to the microphone.
And you haven't got the microphone.
So, if speakers could be brief, that would be appreciated. We're still in the special town meeting. Yeah, not 5 minutes. 2.
Okay.
Go.
I speak now as a chairman of the Board of Health. Now, most of the language that was spoken to my friend, which is very, very interesting, but the question people don't understand. One night, a big company called me up, says, Gina, we need you. I said, for what? We're going to build a big sewage treatment. Where? In Salem, $115 million. I says, okay, how many people you going to give me? I says, I'll only give you 12 in the beginning. Okay, the question is, Littleton needs a sewage treatment because it is an investment. The $200,000, oh, you voted for the library, which I like to see, but this will make you money. It's only thing you need on a sewage treatment is a pump station, about a half an acre maybe, all right, and a leach field. And then you have the machine in which the smart sewage treatment, they come very small. Remember the television and the telephone that you had? Now you have a telephone like this. And the sewage treatment is very, very compact. You understand what I'm talking about? So just remember, they only want the sewage treatment for the common. The common, those people, you have to tell the truth.
There's no need to shout, really.
I'm not shouting, I'm talking loud.
I think you
Don't
are.
be like my wife. All right, I'm trying to minimize my voice, all right? The question is, I want to make everybody understand.
Please wrap up.
Okay? I will wrap up in a few minutes. Now, the people, you have to promise that the people, only those people that use the sewage treatment, the connection, they have to pay a fee every month or every other month like they do in a North Shore. Now, don't make everybody pay for it because they're not using it. Only those people that use it. So you have to make sure you don't trick the people. But it's very important for the common to have, you just remember one thing. What you call Donald's is going to be gone. So somebody will come and buy their property for $2 million, and they're going to build like a 6 or 7 apartments. That means, like he mentioned, those apartments will be worth $1 million. Their money will come in. Not only will we be able to pay for the library, that everybody will love it, including myself, but we can't afford it. But when it comes to sewage, oh, $200,000. Oh, they are willing to spend millions, but they're not willing to spend on investment. I say invest the $200,000, but I wanted the engineer to come to the Board of Health, and I want him to speak to us because we have to know what's going on. Okay? Just remember, you people. One thing is the board over there trying to get everything all together. The question is, you have to realize how much it's going to cost you, and make sure it stays in that line. Don't cheat the people, because this is like a family. We are in family. Don't cheat your people. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes, sir. Center microphone.
My name is James Kennedy, and resident of Littleton, live at 50 Gilson Road. I'm also president of the Littleton Business Association, which is about 2 years old. And we've grown pretty fast, about, I'd say, 90 members now. Very, very few from the point. And I guess they just don't need an association. They have all they need going with the economy over there. It's growing really fast. However, the vast majority of our members are small business owners, and they're struggling. And the point is really pulled away from the business zone and the common. And, you know, you really get a feel for these guys, you know. A lot of them might even own the commercial property that they work from. You know, they saved up their money, they invested in the commercial property, and all they want, some of them, all they want is a tenant. They want to rent, they want to lease the top of the building so they can get a few $100s a month more to cover their mortgage. You know, so if you could do this for the small business owners in the common, I know a lot of them really appreciate it. Also, the town in general will do so much better if we have a vibrant common, a place we can go and walk and enjoy our time in the common. I realize there's a lot of parking issues, and those are other things that we'll address in time. But I support this. I think this is incredibly important for our town to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, we've got someone standing in the cafeteria. If we could hear from him.
Peter Scott, 5 Scott Road. Move the question, please.
Oh, he cheated.
Okay.
He was in here and he cheated.
Been moved.
That's not right.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. All those in favor of moving the question, which is a motion to close debate, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, that's a 2/3 majority, and debate is closed. We'll move to a vote. I'm going to actually take a vote on Part A, and then we'll take Part B separately. They're quite different. So, Part A is the motion to transfer $200,000 from undesignated fund balance to the Littleton, the supplemental funding for Littleton Common Sewer Strategic Plan. All those in favor of transferring $200,000 from undesignated fund balance to the Littleton Common Sewer Plan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? No. Okay, the ayes have it. Passes by the necessary majority. Thank you very much. We'll move to Part B, and I'll turn to Selectman Knox for a quick explanation of Part B.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Our Elder and Human Services was lucky enough to pick up a substantial grant for a new bus. That bus is handicap accessible. The grant was almost $50,000. Our part of that is the $11,000 we're asking for right now. These vans are now running 5 days a week, all day. So I appreciate a positive vote on this.
Okay. Part B is to transfer $11,640 from undesignated fund balance to support, to provide the local match for a vehicle for the Council on Aging. All those in favor of Part B, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it passes by a unanimous majority. Thank you very much. And that concludes Article 5. We'll move on to Article 6 of the special town meeting, and I'll turn to Selectman Carr for this.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So tonight the Board of Commissioners are asking the town to allow us to...
Quiet, please. If you're leaving, that's fine, but do so quietly. Thank you.
Allow us to use cancel the borrowing authorization that we got in November and use a undesignated fund balance of $200,000 so we don't have to go out to debt for the 34 Cedar Road property. That property is up by the standpipe on Cedar Road. So essentially we're asking to change the way we're paying for the property, instead of borrowing, paying cash. Thank you.
Okay, I should read you the motion. Moved and seconded by the Board of Water Commissioners that the town vote to approve Article 6 as printed in the warrant. And I referred to you as Selectman Carr, but that was obviously in your capacity as a water commissioner. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye, and it requires a 2/3 majority. Let me do that again. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as read under Article 6, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, it passes by the necessary 2/3 majority. In fact, it was a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to dissolve the special town meeting and return to the annual town meeting. Okay, is there a second? Okay, all those in favor of dissolving the special town meeting signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Okay, the special town meeting is dissolved.